slow for something. Okay. All right. So we are all ready to go talk about this class. So digital marketing, we will be discussing some of the basic principles related to digital marketing, like content marketing, SEO. We'll touch a little bit on SEM, video marketing, paid display ads, and of course, social media marketing. Please keep in mind, I think since a lot of people think the word digital means social media, that's all what digital marketing is, and it's so much more to that. It's website marketing. We will most certainly talk about social media marketing, but that won't be the only thing that we will discuss as it relates to digital marketing. As I put in my announcement, this class was originally supposed to be in person, but of course, because of COVID-19, it is now fully online. For the most part, you can work through each module for that particular week at your own pace. You won't be able to work ahead because each module will not be open until that Sunday. So week 2 module, for instance, will not be open until, this upcoming Sunday. And then also here, just some basic information. There's my information, my email address. I will talk about Slack a little bit because I'm also rolling that out as a new way of communicating with you all. Some of my colleagues have used Slack with their students, and they have said to me, at least, that students actually prefer that over email, and we'll just try it out. If it's too much, we don't have to continue that throughout the semester. I just want to see if that's a more beneficial way for you all to communicate and ask questions to me. You can call me also if you have a question, especially if you want more of an office hours appointment. And my phone number is there. My office calls are being redirected to my personal cell phone, so you can go ahead and call that number. Or you can set up an appointment on Carmen Zoom, whatever is best for you all. And so this is just basically your basic course description. I'm assuming you all have read that. I kind of already just stated what we'll be talking about. I will discuss basically the foundations of this course, meaning what this course is centered on. And that's a consulting project that, again, I'll talk about in a little more detail, next or second to next. Talked about how this class is completely online. This is a class that's 1.5 credits. And then here, what I'm just doing, this part is telling you all how much work typically is required of a 1.5 credit course. So again, that's just for you all to read for yourself. You are required to participate online, and that's typically in the form of what we call a small group discussion that will be led by you all. And again, I'll talk about that more specifically towards the middle of class when I talk about the assignments. Outside of this class, there will be 2 more live sessions. One will be when we will have a guest speaker, which I'm really looking forward to, on July 13th. And I think the other one takes place on July, I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but I believe it was July 27th, when we discuss digital strategy, and also so you all have a better, I guess you can say, sense of the final presentation as well. So in terms of the textbook, course materials that's required of you all, so one of another interest that I have as it relates to my pedagogical interest is open education. And so an open education is essentially the crazy notion that education should be affordable, equitable, culturally responsive, and accessible to everyone regardless of their background. And so a part of that philosophical belief in higher education is that as a professor, I'm very strategic, and intentional in terms of the type of textbooks that I use in my class, and I really try to use low cost or free textbooks. And the reason why that's the case is because there's a ton of research that shows that textbook costs can have a direct impact on the academic performance of students. And I just don't feel like something like textbook costs should be a barrier to you all's engagement in the class. And so I tell that long-winded story to say, you don't have to pay for any course materials for this class. We will be working primarily out of these 2 textbooks that you see here. They are all digital. Now, I'm assuming that is okay. If you want a hard copy of either textbook, You can print them off, or if you are here in Columbus, Ohio, I can submit like a hard copy request for you, and you can pick it up at the bookstore. I'm not sure how they are running and operating because of the pandemic, but again, if that is your preference, go ahead and reach out to me. And then on top of those two readings or those two textbooks, each week there will be like different course materials, because I understand that some people learn better when they're listening to a podcast or watching a video. So you're not just going to be reading. Sometimes you're going to be listening again to a podcast or watching a really informative video that I think is super relevant to, whatever we're talking about in that week's module. So and I actually can go to it right now. Can you all see the Canvas course here? It's in the student view. Okay, great. So if you go to modules, you will see, for example, where I labeled course materials. And what I try to do is indicate the date, because I know sometimes that can still be confusing when a professor just says course materials. You don't know for which date, right? The course materials you're supposed to read, listen to, watch, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing for week 2, that's coming up next week. And so as you all can see, the course materials for next week, you all will actually be listening to a podcast when we talk about social media marketing and analytics. All right, so that's that as it relates to the course materials. I'm going to go ahead and pause here. Are there any questions? And you can unmute yourself if you want, or just put something in the chat. Either one is fine. No? Okay. Since this course is primarily, actually it is online, not primarily, completely online, I do recommend, if you are having any type of like tech issues, that you first reach out to the Carmen support team. They're going to be a lot more helpful than I will be. And then here I'm just describing some of the technical skills that you'll need for this online course. All of this is really basic information. It's required that I put this in here, to be honest with you, but you all don't necessarily need to read that. And then let's see, yes, let's talk about the more important stuff. So your course assignments. I want to actually jump ahead to this digital marketing consulting project. So when I was given the opportunity to teach this class, I thought about a couple of things. So the digital marketing consulting project is something that all digital marketing sections do. But since we are in the midst of a pandemic and this now has to be online, I thought about revising this to be an individual assignment. But then I thought to myself, well, no, because I still want to give you all the opportunity to still feel like you're working in a team. Because to be honest with you, people who are actually working for marketing agencies and ad agencies, they are still doing campaigns and group work virtually. So the basis of this course, in terms of like what most of your assignments are based on, it's really centered on this digital marketing consulting project. So you've already actually been divided up into teams, and I'll show you all where you can find your team members on Canvas. And you all will essentially serve as marketing consultants for a company that you will choose from. In fact, I have 4 companies that you all can choose from. And then someone in your group would just send me an email or send me a Slack message saying, hey, our group has decided to do our consulting project for the Roosevelt Coffee House. And so from there, you're essentially going to give this company recommendations in terms of their digital marketing strategy and tactics. So in a way, you're kind of designing a campaign proposal. It's not going to be as exhaustive as you would typically find in an RFP. And what I mean by RFP is a request for a proposal. But it is going to be a start to that. And so in terms of what you will need to include in this project, these 6 things, broadly speaking. So in the paper and the final presentation, you will need to kind of do what we call a situation analysis. So what's going on with their digital marketing, their digital communications? You're going to conduct a SWOT analysis. And I'm assuming since most of you all, if not all of you, are marketing majors, you know what I mean by a SWOT analysis. And then a digital content audit. Then from there, not only are you going to report the findings, but provide meaning to those findings. And what I mean by that is, what are some of the pros and cons of the situation? How is it benefiting the brand? And conversely, how is it perhaps even undermining the brand, the business? And then from there, identify one issue, one problem that your group is going to focus on, that you're going to essentially provide recommendations for. Then from there, you're also going to provide a goal statement. I describe this in a lot more detail in the assignment description, which I can also show you all in just a second. You're going to conduct some brief market research. Since this is a summer class, you won't have nearly as much time to do it. And on top of that, it's online. So I have modified that part quite a bit. But you are going to conduct surveys or even virtual focus groups over the key audience that you all will select for this consulting project. And then from there, based upon that market research, everyone, you're going to provide digital marketing strategies and tangible tactics. So strategies are basically the broad ideas. And again, of course, the approach that you're going to use in order to address that problem that you previously talked about. The tactics are, what does that look like, right? So show me how you're going to execute the strategy. And again, we'll talk about that much later on in the semester in terms of digital strategies versus digital tactics. And that's the implementation part, actually. So that is basically what the class is based on, this digital marketing consulting project. So I'm going to go ahead and pause there, and I will show you all where you can find your group assignment. So if you go onto Canvas, click where it says People. Now I'm noticing here on the student end, it looks a little messy. On the instructor end, it does not look this messy at all. But essentially what you all should do is click on each group, find your name, and then from there, you can also see your other team member's name there as well. And what I would recommend doing by the end of this week, maybe reach out to one another. You all can create a group me, message channel if you want, or you can create a separate channel within Slack, which again, I'll talk about in just a second. Whatever is your preferred form of communication. You don't have to do anything just yet. Next week, when I send out my weekly check-in announcements, I will ask you all to select the company or the organization that your group has selected to focus on for the digital marketing project. But for now, I would just reach out to one another, just introduce yourselves to your group members, and then figure out how do you all want to communicate, okay? So I understand, I just said group project. And some of you all are probably thinking, oh my gosh, group project online. Why would she do this to us? Well, I have tried to build in a few parameters to this. And what I mean by that is accountability parameters. I know group projects can be hard, even in person. And so when we add the online variable to it, it can be even more challenging. I know there are a few students in this class who are even out of the country. So we're gonna, obviously be facing challenges as it relates to like time differences, I should say, work schedules. I get it. And so that's why I'm really encourage you guys to work at your own pace and, collaborate with one another. And going back to the point that I made about accountability parameters, you all will have to submit a peer evaluation, in which, again, it's pretty straightforward. You will evaluate each of your team members. This peer evaluation can and will have an impact on your individual grade, okay? So I'm just gonna pick on someone right now. Let's say that Tyler in his group, everyone says that, he's a team player. And in fact, if it wasn't for Tyler, the group project probably wouldn't be as good as it, is. If it's reported that Tyler not only meets the assignment requirements, but he goes above and beyond what's required, I actually will increase his individual grade because he is exerting more effort, it seems like. Conversely, let's say that Tyler is the slacker in the group. And I'm going to define that in just a second as well. but he doesn't communicate with his group members, even if there's something going on personally, they just don't hear from him, unfortunately, I'm going to have to lower his individual grades. So I cannot stress that enough, that peer evaluations can and will have an impact on your individual grade. Now, with that being said, it has to be a general consensus, right? So I'm not looking at situations where perhaps there's a difference of opinion or personality issue. If everyone is saying the same thing about you as a team player, then that kind of leaves me no choice than to, change your individual grade in some capacity. You also will be graded for turning in the peer evaluations. And what I mean by graded is, as long as you do it, you get 5 easy points. Okay, and you will need to submit 2 peer evaluations, one towards the middle of the semester and then the last one at the end. Any questions over that? All right, so the next thing I want to talk about are your small group discussions. So for a lot of online classes, typically instructors will qualify or define participation through the use of discussion boards. And discussion boards are fine, but I feel like, in my opinion, they don't really get at the true beauty of participating online or in an online class. And so I actually redesigned this part of the course. So instead of just posting your personal opinion about the readings on a discussion board, I want to go ahead and again, foster this sense of online community within this course. So what you all will do is, for each week, you will get into different groups and facilitate a small group discussion with just the people that are in your group, not with the entire class, just with the people that you're designated to discuss the readings with for that particular week. And let me go ahead and show you where you can find that as well. I'm noticing I got something in the chat, so I want to go ahead and, oh yeah, yep. I'm going to go ahead and save the exam for a little bit later. I will definitely get to that. Thanks. All right, so like I said, this definitely looks a lot cleaner on the professor end. Not sure what's going on here on the student end. But what you all should do for each week, find your name and see which individual or individuals, because it's 2 to 3 people in each group, you've been assigned to facilitate this small group discussion. So I'll go ahead and open it up for week 2. And this second number, you all, that you see here, that's just designating the group number, not the week number. You can see the week number here. So this is still week 2, week 2, week 2. All right, so going back to the assignment description here. So what you all will do is, by Friday, you all will submit your Zoom recording of what you and your classmate or classmates discuss as it relates to that week's reading. I do, in the assignment description, which I'm going to go back here and show you all, I do have some guiding questions for you, but you don't necessarily have to use those questions. I really want you all to take ownership of the discussion for each week's reading. So let me go ahead and see here. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. That's okay. I'll just go ahead and take care of that after class today. So yeah, so by Friday of each week, make sure that you all have that Zoom recording uploaded. You can just copy and paste the Zoom link. And again, next week, what I will do is record another video to show you all how to exactly do that, because I'm assuming some of you all might not know how to record a Zoom session. It's super, super easy. The Zoom recording should be about 15 to 20 minutes, no more than 25 minutes. And I know some of you all might be thinking, man, that's a long time to be discussing readings. You'd be surprised. So I did this for another class, and it actually went really, really well, and students like this part of the discussion. So yes, that's pretty much it for these small group discussions. So instead of discussion boards, you all will just record your virtual discussions with a classmate or 2 other classmates. Any questions over that? I feel like I kind of stumbled through that a little bit because of the assignment description was missing. And then here is just a breakdown of my participation grades, or interpretation of participation grades, I should say. You can just read that to yourself. The only reason why I have that there is because sometimes I feel like there's a discrepancy between what students think is participation and what a professor thinks is participation. So again, if you do want some type of frame of reference, I encourage you all to read that. All right, going back up to the exam and case studies as well as the certifications. So there will be one exam that is going to be open book. Since this is online, it's one of those situations where, you know, hey, let's just go ahead and make it open book. You can use your notes, all of that. Most of the questions will be multiple choice or true false. There will be a study guide for you all to prepare in advance. I try to post a study guide about a week and a half in advance. You have the entire day to take the exam. That exam will be posted on Canvas. I do not allow people to take the exam late, so make sure you put a reminder on your phone when the exam is going to take place. Of course, if you are sick, and again, unfortunately, we're going through a pandemic right now. If you know you're going through something, just reach out to me. I'm talking about a situation where there's a student who's not keeping up with the online class, and they reach out to me like a week after the exam is due, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot about the exam. Can I make it up?" Unfortunately, I won't be able to give you that opportunity to make it up. So that's the exam. And again, it is cumulative. It's pretty much over everything that we've covered up until I think the exam is July 20th. Then we have case studies. So the case study and the exam, those are individual assignments. So essentially I'm going to talk about a business that's going through some type of digital marketing issue. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative issue, just something, some type of situation that they're going through. And you're going to essentially apply what you've learned in class to this digital marketing situation. It's a pretty straightforward, easy assignment. It's another assignment where I'm kind of giving you easy points, I guess you can say. And you're just going to write up your recommendations and your real world application in what we call a one-page memo. And here I'm just specifying what that looks like. And yeah, pretty straightforward. The assignment description for that particular assignment is not posted yet. That'll actually be posted right after class. I was just actually completing that before class. Then we have certifications. So many of you all stated at the beginning of class that you're really looking forward to obtaining the certifications. I cannot stress enough how good this looks on your resume, especially if you want to go into marketing. So you have the option of completing certifications for 2 of the 5 that you see here in the syllabus. By the end of this week, I will provide a more detailed description of each certification in the announcements tab on Canvas, as well as where to go in order to complete the certification. I finally got word from Hootsuite that that is free. Oh, actually, all of the certifications are free. I just have to apply, you know, for the professor option so that it's free to you all. And this will be done at your own pace. The due date for this is just basically the last day of class, so that will be July 31st. Really pace yourself because this is additional work on top of the digital marketing consulting project. So if you want to get a head start on that by the time I, you know, or at the time when I post more information about that, go ahead and get started. Some certifications take longer than others, so just keep that in mind as well. I just noticed here I did not actually put how long it usually takes for the Hootsuite social media certification. It's around 4 hours or so, so very similar to the content marketing one. Okay, so once more, you only have to do 2 of the 5 certification programs here, not all 5 of them. Questions over that?
Yeah, what would the certifications look like? Like you said, 4 hours. Like what would we be doing within those 4 hours? Do you think?
Yeah. So it's almost like, was that? I'm sorry, I don't have mine. Is that Jazeer?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. So it's almost like you're working through course modules, very similar to a class. It somewhat feels like you're taking another class. It's of course not as intense as a college course. And then after you've worked through the modules and read the mini readings for each certification or whatever certification you're working on, then you take an exam. And so if you pass that exam, and depending upon like each certification, they have like different standards. I think for Hootsuite, you have to have at least an 80 or 85%. I can't remember off the top of my head because they just recently changed that. And so once you pass the exam, you get the certification. And so that's basically it. Any other questions about that? I see something in the chat. Oh, sorry about that, Tenu. So yes, once you start the exam, you actually have to finish it. So what I mean by you have all day to take it, you don't have to take it during a specific time on July 20th, but let's say you log in and you start to take it at 11 o'clock, you have to finish it, you know, before you exit out of Canvas. If you do not finish it, then unfortunately you're going to get a 0. If that happens, like let's say that your internet goes out, you know, randomly, please send me like an urgent email or a message on Slack so I can reopen it for you. But if it's one of those situations where you're like exiting out of it to see, I don't know, if you're just exiting out of it, unfortunately it'll automatically give you a grade for the questions that you've already answered. So just go ahead and devote an hour, hour and a half to take the exam. Usually that's how long it takes to take the exam. It's 80 points, 40 questions. So 2 points for each question. All right. Any other questions about that? Okay, so how is your grade calculated? Here I have a breakdown of the point values for each assignment. So of course, the most is your digital marketing consulting project. So that is multifaceted, or actually it's two-pronged. So we have the presentation and the paper. So the paper and presentation are both worth 50 points. So cumulatively, it's going to be worth 100 points. I've already talked about the exam here. Your case study write-ups, which again are individual assignments, they are each worth 25 points. Your certifications, just do 2 of the 5. Each of them are worth 10 points. And then your video discussions, for each of them, I think they're worth, yes, 10 points. So in total for each video, or for all videos, they're going to be worth 40 points. And then your peer evaluations, 5 points each, you're going to do 2, so a total of 10 points. So this class in total is worth 300 points. Now here I have my late assignment policy. I think I'm actually going to change that. That was from, you know, other classes where, you know, in the marketing and public relations industry, not doing the work on time is equivalent to not doing the work at all. But I'm also human, right? We are still going through a pandemic. And I understand that life is happening and life is real right now. So what I'm going to do instead, and again, I will update this after class today, I will allow some late assignments. And what I mean by that is maybe your discussion video posts or your case study write-ups, but not major assignments like your exam, your final presentation, your final paper. Those are pretty important, so I'm going to keep the original late assignment policy for those major assignments. For the more individual lower stake assignments, I'm going to be a little more flexible with that. So I'll give you all a 1-day grace period, again, because life is happening and you might have forgotten about something, okay? And then here's the grading scale in terms of what's, you know, point value wise, what's in the A range, B range, C range, et cetera, et cetera. Now here, notice I did not account for like A- or B+. You can do that math very easily. This is just the range for the, you know, A range, B range, et cetera. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause there. Questions at all? Y'all are scaring me. You don't have any questions. Not too many, but it's okay if you don't. All right, so since this is an online class, I really try my best to be as responsive as possible. However, I still have an email policy. I ask that you all give me about a day to respond to emails, and that includes Slack messages, which I'm going to go through in like 10 seconds. I do believe in work-life balance, and it's not to sound rude or anything like that, but I do not answer emails after 7 p.m. on the weekdays, and then I don't answer emails on the weekend. Unless there's a major assignment, let's say that's coming up on a Monday, I will answer emails on a Sunday, but I absolutely do not answer emails on Saturdays and Friday evenings. And then this note about the discussion board, that, you know, that's just for your small group discussions, your Zoom discussions. I will actually respond to those in an audio, so be looking out for that. I try to do that within a day. I try to. All right, so let's talk about Slack. So a few of you all have already joined Slack. And for those who don't know what Slack is, it is essentially another communication platform that's actually really popular in workplaces and in terms of business communication. People prefer it to email. And like I said, some of my colleagues are using it with their students, and students have told them that they actually prefer this way of communicating compared to email. And I think it's because it might be easier and faster for me to respond to your questions in Slack as opposed to email. But I will respond to your communications via email and on Slack. So I don't want you all to feel like you have to use Slack to, what I'm trying to say, to ask a question. Now, I would like you all to go ahead and create a Slack account to at least introduce yourself to the class. That will be required. But in terms of how much you want to use it, that's really up to you. I think you all should try to use it only because if there's a student in the class who's asking a question that you might have the same question about, that just works out well for both students for the entire class. And so on Slack, there are what we call different channels. And what I mean by that, or what Slack means by that, is there are like different subjects that you can address your questions or concerns to, or about, I should say. So yeah, different topics, different sections. That's what's implied by channels. You can also direct message people who are in the Slack channel, people in the class. You can direct message me. And that's essentially it. Now, for situations that are more personal in nature, and then for more like complex, detailed situations, I do recommend that you either send me an email, or even better, probably call me on my office phone. But Slack is for one of those like, hey, I have a random question, or I have a really quick question, Professor Roberts. When is the first case study due? That would be an appropriate question for Slack. But if you are having a group issue that you need to give me a lot more detail about, just call me, set up an appointment, I should say, to call me, or just send me an email. And again, if you haven't already joined Slack, please make sure you do so. Introduce yourself to the class. Any questions over that? Okay.
There are like a round of questions. Like, yeah. I saw 1, 2, 3, 4. Where is that at?
What was that? I'm sorry.
It looks like they were like answering questions based on
some type of prompt. Yeah, so that's right up here at the top. I apologize for that. I believe I can pin that, and I'll do that on my phone. Oh, speaking of a phone, so Slack has a mobile app. So if that's easier for you all, instead of just logging into the desktop version, you can do that. I love the Slack app. I use it a lot for different workspaces and different projects I'm involved in. So yeah. All right. And some other things to consider for writing in terms of writing style. So I am a writer at heart, so the way in which you're communicating in terms of written communication matters a lot to me. And outside of this class, written communication is consistently one of, if not the most sought after skill when it comes to recent college graduates, what employers are looking for. It's written communication, verbal communication, and the ability to work in teams. And so even though I'm not necessarily looking for a particular writing style, the way in which you communicate your recommendations for your consulting project, for instance, it should have a professional tone. It goes without saying, like grammar, spelling, punctuation, all of that stuff really, really matters. I will talk about this later on when I record the video that goes into your consulting project assignment in more detail. but this is just talking about citations, how you should cite your sources for that particular assignment. These are some policies for the class. So I've already pretty much went through most of this. I do want to bring your attention to this point here, the third one, reusing past work. Please do not use previous work from other classes that you've taken. That is not allowed. I personally do not call it self-plagiarizing because I think that's an oxymoron. I don't know where we got that term from, but I don't want you to use previous work from other classes. So I've already told you all that you will be conducting market research for this class. Do not fake your research results. There's a way to where I know whether or not you're making up data, and that has unfortunately happened. It doesn't happen often, but that did happen in a campaign class that I taught 2 years ago where a group made up their research results, and it was a disaster because at the time we were working with an actual real world client, and yeah. So just don't do that. I'd rather you say to me, hey, Professor Roberts, we really didn't get as many respondents as we thought we were going to get. We only got 5, for instance. I'd rather it be a situation like that as opposed to you falsifying some of your market research results. And I've already talked about the nature of group projects. And another thing I want to say to you all is, if you are having issues with like collaborating with your group members because everyone has a different schedule, just come talk to me. In fact, what I'm going to do, I think in about 2 or 3 weeks, about 2 weeks, I am going to make what's called a doodle where you all will fill out when you're available. And I really want to check in with each group just to make sure you're doing okay, that you are thinking about some of the issues related to the company that you chose, all of that. But it goes without saying that you all need to pace yourself with this group project. Don't wait until the very end of the semester to be thinking about it because it is some work, you know? So I say all that to say, make sure that you're communicating with me. If there are any issues, just give me a heads up so that the project at the end of the semester can be really, really good and as successful as possible. This is just, you know, your typical code of conduct, student code of conduct, I should say, and academic integrity policy. Don't plagiarize, it's stupid. And then some other resources for you all. I'm sure you are well aware of some of those resources. Mental health, I do want to rest on this point. Mental health, luckily, is a topic that we are talking a lot more about. I even mentioned it at the beginning of class today, how I dropped out of my PhD program because of mental health reasons. I don't consider myself a failure for doing that. In fact, I'm very proud of myself for doing that and putting myself first. And so I say that cheesy stuff to say, if you're going through mental health issues, I understand how uncomfortable it is to talk to your professor about that. You don't know me, but I hope that you feel comfortable enough in the end to talk to me if you are going through something, only because I want to be able to advocate for you. I want to be able to make those accommodations if you are going through something. If you don't feel comfortable talking to me, I know ODS, the Office of Disability Services, they are so great in terms of kind of being a liaison between the student and the professor. So if that applies to you, if you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to my professor about my mental health issues, I would strongly implore you, or I implore you to go to ODS for some help there. But again, that communication has to be proactive, because if you wait until the end of the semester to tell me that you've been struggling with anxiety or depression or other related issues, you put me in a position where I can't really advocate for you. And I just really hate being in that position. So yes, I say all that to say, please talk to me. I really do have a open door policy, but I need to hear from you. I can only help you if, you know, again, I hear from you. All right. And I already talked about ODS there. If you are registered through ODS and you are requesting accommodations, please send me an email because I'd like to talk to you one-on-one about those accommodations. Again, I want this class to be as advantageous as possible for you. And then finally, whew, we are almost there, the course schedule. So this course moves pretty fast, again, because it's a summer class. So make sure before the end of this week that you watch the lecture for this week, and I'll go back to the course and show you all where that's located. Oops. Modules. So where it says recorded lectures, click on this link, and that's where you can find the lecture for this week. And the same will go for next week. I haven't yet posted that, but there will be a section that says recorded lectures right under course materials for Wednesday, July 1st. All right, so I do recommend that you all put some of these assignment due dates in your calendar, or if you just use Canvas as a reminder, that's fine. Like I said, the course moves pretty fast, so pace yourself. And the only other synchronous lectures that we have, once more, takes place July 13th, and then July 27th, actually. So all the other lectures are pre-recorded, and again, you can watch them at your own pace. So next week, we will not have a live lecture. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I feel like I went through so much and this was so boring. No, but it's necessary, right? I hope that answered at least some of your basic questions about the class. Any questions, comments, concerns? What have you all heard about this class, digital marketing, if anything? You can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Have you heard anything?
I had a quick question.
Yeah, Emma.
On the course schedule, it says that there's a discussion post due on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
That the Slack intro, or is there something else?
Yeah, that was a Slack intro. Yeah.
Okay. All right, just double checking.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Oops. And I can actually change that so that it's not confusing. Like, wait a minute, I thought we weren't having any discussion posts other than the Zoom meetings. Other questions? Or other things you guys have heard about the class? That's the question I asked. Nothing? It was just one of those classes that you have to take? Well, I've heard from Fisher students that I've talked to that have taken comm classes that this is actually one of the more enjoyable marketing classes, which is one of the other reasons why I'm really looking forward to teaching this class. And I think it's going to be very, very timely, especially what we see going on with digital activism, Black Lives Matter. A lot of people are taking to social media and just other forms of digital tools to voice their opinions about what's going on. So my hope is that you all can make those connections between what's going on in our class and then what's going on outside of our class. So very, very hands-on course, very real-world application or applicable. And I can tell we're gonna have a lot of fun here. So I'll go ahead and end it now if there are no further questions. If you haven't, again, already done so, make sure you create your Slack profile, introduce yourself to the class, I'll respond. And as a reminder, we will not meet next week, so be looking out for the recorded lecture for both next Monday and next Wednesday's class. So, all right, everyone, take care. It was so lovely meeting you all, and I will see you around.
Thank you.